Mr. Pierce, your wife is stable now. You can see her, but please keep the visit brief. She needs rest. Nathaniel stood frozen in the sterile hospital corridor, his custom Italian suit suddenly feeling too tight across his shoulders. The fluorescent overhead lights made everything look harsh and unforgiving, including his reflection in the glass door. Just hours ago, he had dismissed divorce papers with a condescending laugh, barely looking up from his laptop. Now, something cold and heavy settled in his stomach. The door to room 412 felt impossibly heavy as he pushed it open. Olivia lay against white sheets, an IV dripping steadily into her arm, her normally vibrant complexion now pale and drawn. She looked small. Had she always been this thin? When had the shadows appeared beneath her eyes? "Why didn't you call me?" he asked, his voice barely audible. "You were in meetings all day," she replied, her tone flat with resignation. "Important meetings, as always. Harper said you collapsed at some gallery. What's going on, Olivia?" She met his gaze directly, something she hadn't done in months. "I've been receiving treatment for the past 8 months. Today was just a difficult day." "Treatment? For what?" The word stuck in his throat. "Chronic myeloid leukemia," she said quietly. "A form of blood cancer." The world tilted beneath Nathaniel's feet. Cancer? That was impossible. He would have known if his wife was seriously ill, wouldn't he? Cancer? The word fell from his lips like a stone. That's impossible. I would have known if you were sick. Would you? Olivia's question hung in the air between them, devastating in its simplicity. Have you ever been so fixated on climbing the ladder of success that you failed to notice what was happening right beside you? What defines true achievement in life? Is it the corner office with your name on the door, or being present for the people who matter most? Nathaniel Pierce had built an empire worth billions, yet he couldn't recall when his wife had last smiled at him with genuine warmth. He could recite quarterly projections from memory, but didn't know the name of her doctor or what medications she took. How many dinners have you missed with loved ones because this deal can't wait? How many birthdays, anniversaries, or ordinary Tuesday evenings have been sacrificed on the altar of professional ambition? When Nathaniel discovered the truth about his wife's condition, it wasn't just a medical diagnosis. It was a judgment on the life he'd chosen to build. A life where the woman who had once been his everything now suffered alone, believing her pain wasn't important enough to interrupt his precious schedule. What would it take for you to reassess what truly matters before it's too late? Welcome to Mr. Ross Story Trail, where we explore life's most profound lessons through compelling narratives. If you're joining us for the first time, I'm honored to have you here. This channel exists to share stories that not only entertain but also illuminate the truths we often overlook in our busy lives. Before we continue Nathaniel and Olivia's powerful journey, take a moment to hit that subscribe button and notification bell. Each week, we deliver thought-provoking stories that will make you reflect on your own life choices and relationships. Your subscription helps our community grow and ensures you never miss these important reminders about what truly matters. Look at the comments from our regular viewers. Many share how these stories have prompted meaningful conversations with their loved ones or inspired them to make overdue changes in their priorities. Wouldn't you like to be part of this transformative experience? Our returning viewers know that every story on this channel contains moments that might challenge your perspective or touch your heart in unexpected ways. Your engagement through likes, comments, and shares helps spread these valuable lessons to others who might need them. So go ahead, subscribe now. Then settle in as we return to Nathaniel Pierce, the CEO who believed he had everything until a hospital visit revealed just how much he had lost. Today's story will take you through a journey of awakening that changes everything for a man who measured his worth solely in dollars and stock options. You'll witness how quickly priorities can shift when confronted with what truly matters. Will Nathaniel realize what he's about to lose before it's too late? Can a man who built walls around his emotions tear them down quickly enough to save his marriage and perhaps his wife's life? This isn't just about a CEO and his sick wife. It's about all of us, how we allocate our most precious resource, time. It's about the choices we make daily that either strengthen or weaken our connections to those who love us. As Nathaniel stands in that hospital room, everything he thought he knew about success begins to crumble. The coming hours will force him to question every decision he's made over the past decade. What would you do if you suddenly discovered that the person you've been taking for granted might not be there tomorrow? How far would you go to make amends for years of neglect? Stay with me as we follow Nathaniel's transformation from the shark to a man desperately fighting for a second chance he may not deserve. 8 years before that fateful hospital visit, Nathaniel Pierce sat across from 3 venture capitalists in a borrowed conference room, his only suit slightly too large for his frame. Vertex Technologies has potential, said the lead investor, sliding the business plan back across the table. But we don't think you're the right person to lead it. You lack experience, added another. Come back in 5 years. Nathaniel had nodded politely, collected his documents, and walked out. That night, in their small apartment, Olivia found him redesigning the entire presentation. "They said no?" she asked, setting a cup of coffee beside him. "They said no to this version," he corrected, not looking up. "I'll create something they can't refuse." 6 months later, Vertex secured funding from a different group of investors. 2 years after that, Nathaniel bought the building where he'd been rejected and installed his company headquarters there. The conference room where he'd faced his first major rejection became his private office. The business world quickly learned what happened when you underestimated Nathaniel Pierce. He acquired struggling tech companies, stripped them down, and integrated their most valuable components into Vertex. Competitors who wouldn't sell found themselves outmaneuvered in the market until they had no choice. The Shark nickname emerged after he negotiated an acquisition that left the selling company's CEO nearly in tears. "He can smell blood in the water from miles away," the business press reported. Rather than reject the moniker, Nathaniel embraced it, keeping a small shark sculpture on his desk, a gift from an admiring board member. By 35, he had transformed Vertex from a startup with an innovative communication platform into a tech conglomerate with interests spanning cybersecurity, artificial intelligence, and medical technology. The Forbes profile called him relentlessly focused, which even Nathaniel recognized as a polite way of saying obsessed. Before she became Mrs. Pierce, Olivia Keller graduated at the top of her class from Rhode Island School of Design. Her mixed media installations had caught the attention of several prominent galleries, and a professor had connections with curators in New York who expressed interest in her work. "Your perspective is unique," her mentor had told her. "The way you combine traditional techniques with digital elements creates something genuinely fresh." She met Nathaniel at a friend's gallery opening where he'd come to network with potential clients. While others saw a tech entrepreneur in a bargain suit, Olivia noticed his intense focus when she explained her artistic process, how he actually listened instead of just waiting for his turn to speak. Their courtship was a whirlwind of late nights discussing their dreams. He would spread his business plans across her studio floor, and she would help him visualize concepts that investors could understand. She designed Vertex's original logo at 3 a.m., using techniques that made the company appear more established than it was. "We're going to change the world," Nathaniel would say, his eyes bright with possibility. "Your art and my technology, we're unstoppable together." When his first major contract required moving to Seattle, Olivia packed up her studio without hesitation. "Your moment is now," she told him. "My art can happen anywhere." She found space in their apartment for a small studio and took freelance design jobs to supplement their income while Nathaniel pursued investors. For 3 years, she managed their home, refined his presentations, entertained potential business partners, and worked odd hours to keep her artistic skills sharp. When Vertex secured its first $1 million investment, they celebrated on their balcony with takeout and cheap champagne. "This is just the beginning," Nathaniel had whispered, pulling her close. "Everything I build, I'm building for us." The shift happened gradually. First came the missed dinners, then the forgotten anniversaries. The texts that once flowed freely between them dwindled to practical exchanges about social obligations and household matters. In their 5th year of marriage, as Vertex expanded into international markets, Olivia realized she had spoken more words to their housekeeper than to her husband in the past week. This recognition sparked her first deliberate attempt to bridge the growing gap. She planned a surprise weekend at the coastal cottage where they'd spent their honeymoon. She arranged for his assistant to clear his calendar, packed his favorite books, and prepared herself for the conversation they desperately needed. "I can't just disappear for a weekend," he'd said, pacing their bedroom with his phone pressed to his ear. "The Singapore team needs these approvals by Monday. The reservation is non-refundable," she explained, trying to keep the disappointment from her voice. "Then go without me. Take Harper. I'll make it up to you next month." She went alone, spending 3 days walking the beach and sketching the horizon, wondering when exactly she had become an afterthought in her husband's life. For their 8th anniversary, she left notes throughout his day, in his briefcase, his car, with his assistant, each, containing a memory from their early years together, and culminating in an invitation to meet her at the restaurant where he had proposed. He arrived 90 minutes late, distracted, having missed 3 of the 5 notes entirely. "I'm trying to connect with you," she told him over cooling entrees. "Do you even want that anymore?" "Of course I do," he replied automatically, his gaze drifting to his vibrating phone. "I'm just in the middle of something critical." She organized dinners with interesting people who weren't business connections. She booked cooking classes they had once talked about taking. She sent thoughtful messages during his day. Each attempt met with diminishing returns, until she could predict his response before he gave it. "I need more of your attention," she finally said one night, standing in the doorway of his home office. "I'm giving you everything I can right now," he answered, his focus never leaving his computer screen. This phase won't last forever, but 3 years later, the phase showed no signs of ending, and Olivia began to understand that perhaps this wasn't a phase at all. It was simply who they had become. The first signs were easy to dismiss. Unusual fatigue that she attributed to stress, night sweats she blamed on hormones, bruises that appeared without clear cause. When climbing the stairs to their bedroom left her winded, she joined a gym, assuming she'd simply grown out of shape during the busy winter season. It was Harper who first voiced concern. "You don't look well, Liv," she said during their monthly lunch. "When was your last checkup?" "I'm fine," Olivia insisted. "Just tired. Nathaniel's Tokyo expansion has us attending events almost every night." But a week later, when she nearly fainted while hanging a painting in their home, she made an appointment with her doctor. The initial blood tests led to more specialized tests, which led to a somber conversation in Dr. Patel's office. "Chronic myeloid leukemia," the doctor explained. "It's a type of blood cancer that progresses slowly, which is why you've been able to manage the symptoms for so long." Olivia sat very still, absorbing the information as Dr. Patel outlined treatment options and prognosis statistics. "What's the next step?" she asked, her artist's mind already categorizing the colors in this new landscape. The stark white of hospital walls, the translucent amber of medication bottles. That evening, she waited for Nathaniel to return from his business trip, rehearsing how to tell him. When he called from Singapore, excitement bubbled through his voice as he described the deal he'd just closed. "This changes everything for Vertex," he said. "We're looking at a 30% increase in Asian market share." The words she'd prepared dissolved on her tongue. "That's wonderful," she replied. "I'm happy for you." She told herself she would share the diagnosis when he returned, when she could see his face, when he wasn't celebrating a professional triumph. But when he arrived home, he brought a delegation of new partners, and their house filled with business discussions that stretched late into the night. In the weeks that followed, she started treatment alone. She scheduled appointments during his board meetings, recovered from side effects behind the closed door of their guest bedroom, and kept her medication hidden in her studio supplies. 3 times she made dinner reservations at quiet restaurants, planning to tell him. 3 times he canceled at the last minute. Once she left her medical file on his desk with a note asking him to review it. He returned it the next day via his assistant with a post-it reading, "Please file these household documents." Eventually, she stopped trying. 6 months into her treatment, on a Tuesday when the house felt particularly empty, Olivia found herself wandering through the Prism Gallery downtown. The small space showcased emerging artists, its walls alive with fresh perspectives and bold techniques. "Beautiful work," commented an older man who introduced himself as Theo, the owner. "Are you an artist yourself?" The question startled her. When had anyone last asked about her work? When had she last thought of herself as an artist rather than as Mrs. Nathaniel Pierce? "I used to be," she answered honestly. Their conversation lasted hours, spanning artistic movements and exhibition strategies. When Theo mentioned needing volunteers to help with their community outreach program, Olivia found herself offering her time without hesitation. Twice weekly, she began working with young artists, helping them prepare portfolios and learn the business side of the art world. In their creative struggles and triumphs, she rediscovered parts of herself that had grown dusty from disuse. The gallery became her sanctuary, a place where she was valued for her knowledge and vision, not her husband's net worth. When Theo offered her a part-time position curating their emerging artists program, she accepted immediately. "Your eye for emerging talent is exceptional," he told her. "These young artists trust you." She didn't tell Nathaniel about the job. At first, this was simply because the opportunity to discuss it never arose. Later, it became a deliberate choice. This was hers alone, untouched by his world of acquisitions and market shares. On days when treatment left her too weak to visit the gallery, she worked remotely, reviewing portfolios and writing artist statements. The work gave structure to her weeks and purpose to her days in a way that charity galas and corporate dinners never had. It was after a particularly meaningful exhibition opening, where 3 young artists she'd mentored sold their first professional works, that Olivia made her decision. Sitting alone in their expansive penthouse, waiting for Nathaniel to return from yet another late meeting, she finally acknowledged that their marriage existed only as a convenient arrangement. The next morning, she called her lawyer. 2 days later, she met with a therapist to ensure she wasn't acting from emotional desperation. A week after that, she had lunch with Harper. "Are you sure about this?" Harper asked, squeezing her hand across the table. "I'm sure I can't spend whatever time I have left feeling like a ghost in my own life," Olivia replied. "I've tried everything I know to reach him." "He'll be shocked," Harper warned. "Men like Nathaniel don't get left." "That's part of the problem," Olivia said quietly. "He believes everything and everyone in his life is permanently secured, assets he's acquired that will always be there when he decides to pay attention. That evening, she requested the divorce papers be drawn up, not as a negotiation tactic or a cry for attention, but as acceptance of what their relationship had become. The decision brought an unexpected sense of peace, the calm that comes with finally acknowledging a truth long denied. The morning Olivia decided to present the divorce papers was unseasonably cold for October. Rain streaked the floor-to-ceiling windows of their penthouse, turning the city skyline into a watercolor blur. She had chosen this day carefully, a rare morning when Nathaniel worked from home before his afternoon meetings. She'd rehearsed this moment countless times, yet her heart still hammered against her ribs as she approached his home office. The mahogany door stood slightly ajar, and she could see him hunched over his laptop, the blue light reflecting off his glasses. Once she would have paused to appreciate his focused expression, the slight furrow between his brows when he concentrated. Now it only reminded her of all the times that expression had never wavered when she spoke. 3 gentle knocks. "Nathaniel, do you have a moment?" He didn't look up. "Can it wait until after the Kensington call?" "No," she said firmly. "It can't." Something in her tone must have registered because he glanced up briefly. 5 minutes, then. Olivia stepped inside, clutching the manila envelope to her chest like a shield. His office was impeccably organized. Awards lined the built-in shelves, industry magazines arranged precisely on the coffee table, his collection of rare fountain pens displayed in a glass case. Every object had its place, except perhaps for her. She placed the envelope on his desk, careful not to disturb the arrangement of files already there. For a moment her fingers lingered on the paper, a last hesitation, a final moment when their shared history could still continue unchanged. "What's this?" Nathaniel barely glanced at the envelope, his fingers continuing to type. "Divorce papers," Olivia said quietly, her voice steadier than she'd expected. His fingers froze over the keyboard. For the first time in months, perhaps years, Nathaniel looked directly at his wife, truly seeing her. She stood straight-backed in a simple blue dress, her once shoulder-length hair now cut into a short bob he couldn't recall noticing before. Her eyes, which had once looked at him with such warmth, now seemed guarded, resolved. A flicker of something, surprise, perhaps even hurt, crossed Nathaniel's face before being replaced by a smirk. He pushed back from his desk slightly, his expression settling into the one he typically reserved for competitors attempting to outmaneuver him. "Divorce papers? Really, Olivia?" He chuckled, the sound devoid of humor. "Is this some kind of ultimatum? A creative way to get my attention?" She didn't rise to the bait. "No, it's not an ultimatum. It's a decision I've made after a great deal of consideration." Nathaniel pushed the envelope aside without opening it, as if dismissing a minor irritation. "We can discuss this after the Kensington merger. I don't have time for domestic drama right now." "That's precisely the issue, Nathaniel. You never have time." Olivia remained standing, refusing to be diminished. "I've tried everything to save our marriage. You've chosen your company over us consistently for years." Nathaniel laughed coldly, leaning back in his custom leather chair. "The company that provides everything you enjoy? The penthouse, the vacations, the jewelry?" He stood up, towering over her. "You knew who I was when you married me. This is what success looks like." "Success?" Olivia's voice cracked slightly, the first hint of emotion breaking through her composed exterior. "You measure success by your bank account while your personal life crumbles. When was the last time we had dinner together without you taking business calls? When did you last ask about my dreams?" "Dreams don't pay bills, Olivia," he countered dismissively. "I built all this from nothing." "We built it together," she corrected him, a flash of fire in her eyes. "I was there when Vertex was just an idea in our small apartment. I designed your first company logo, entertained your investors' wives, reworked your presentations at midnight. I believed in you when no one else did." Nathaniel waved his hand dismissively, as if swatting away an inconvenient truth. "That was years ago. The company needs me now, and I needed you," Olivia whispered. "But I've accepted that I'll never be a priority in your life." Her words hung in the air between them, the truth of them too heavy for Nathaniel to deflect with his usual tactics. For a brief moment, something flickered behind his eyes, recognition perhaps, or the first inkling of doubt. But the moment passed quickly. His phone buzzed with an incoming call, and his gaze drifted toward it instinctively. That small, unconscious action said everything about their relationship that words could not. "You see," she said quietly, "you can't even focus on this conversation, the one that determines the future of our marriage, without checking your phone." "That could be the Tokyo team," he muttered defensively. "It always could be someone. There's always something more important than us." Nathaniel glanced at the envelope again, still unmoved from where he'd pushed it aside. "This is extreme, Olivia. Every marriage goes through rough patches. We're just busy right now. We've been just busy for 3 years, Nathaniel. This isn't a rough patch, it's who we've become. So your solution is to throw away 8 years of marriage? To walk away from everything we've built? His tone hardened, the business negotiator emerging. Have you thought about what this means practically? Where would you go? What would you do? You've been Mrs. Pierce for so long. Would you even know how to be anyone else? The question was meant to shake her confidence, to remind her of her dependence on him. It was a tactic he'd used in countless boardrooms, identify the opponent's insecurities and exploit them. But Olivia didn't flinch. Instead, a small, sad smile touched her lips. That's where you're wrong. There's a lot you don't know about me anymore. Friends, pause with me for a moment. Have you ever been in a relationship where you felt invisible? Or perhaps you've been so focused on one aspect of life that you've neglected the people who matter most? If this story is touching something in you, take a second to hit that like button and share your thoughts in the comments below. Your experiences might help someone else who's walking through a similar situation right now. Now, let's return to Nathaniel and Olivia's confrontation, where the truth about their broken connection is fully exposed. What's that supposed to mean? Nathaniel asked, genuine confusion crossing his features. It means I've grown and changed while you weren't looking, Olivia replied. I'm not the same person who stood beside you at industry events, smiling on cue and making small talk with investors' wives. I've built a life outside these walls because I had to. Nathaniel's brow furrowed as he tried to process her words. What life? What changes? He prided himself on his observational skills, his ability to read people and situations. How could he have missed significant changes in his own wife? You're being dramatic, he said finally, retreating to familiar ground. This is about attention. I've been focused on the Kensington deal, but once it's done next month, we can take that trip to Bali you mentioned last year. Olivia shook her head slowly. That's not what this is about. And I mentioned Bali 3 years ago, not last year. As she turned to leave, Nathaniel called after her, his voice dripping with confidence. You'll never go through with this. The papers will sit on some lawyer's desk gathering dust. You'll realize what you're giving up. Olivia paused at the door, her hand resting lightly on the frame. No, Nathaniel. I already know exactly what I'm giving up, and what I might gain. The door closed softly behind her, leaving Nathaniel alone with the envelope. He stared at it for a long moment, then pushed it further aside to make room for his laptop. She was. Bluffing, he told himself. By dinner, she'd reconsider. By the weekend, the whole incident would be forgotten. After all, no one walked away from Nathaniel Pierce. Not employees, not business partners, and certainly not his wife. This was clearly an emotional reaction. A cry for attention that he would address when his schedule allowed. He returned to his email, the momentary disruption already fading from his thoughts. The Kensington deal wouldn't negotiate itself, and he had a reputation to maintain. Whatever was bothering Olivia could wait until after the merger was finalized. She had always waited before. For the 7 days following the divorce papers incident, Nathaniel maintained his routine with unwavering precision. He woke at 5:15 a.m., completed his morning workout in the penthouse gym, reviewed international market reports over breakfast, and arrived at Vertex headquarters by 7:30. If he noticed Olivia's absence from their shared breakfast nook, or the guest bedroom door remaining consistently closed, he didn't acknowledge it. On Monday, he closed the Peterson acquisition, a mid-sized cybersecurity firm whose technology would integrate perfectly with Vertex's enterprise solutions. Brilliant move, Nathaniel, remarked CFO Marcus Whiting during their executive lunch. Their encryption protocols alone are worth the purchase price. Their management team never recognized what they had, Nathaniel replied, cutting his steak with surgical precision. They were sitting on gold and treating it like copper. Tuesday brought quarterly projections that exceeded Wall Street expectations, sending Vertex stock climbing 3% in afternoon trading. Wednesday and Thursday blurred together in a series of international video conferences, legal reviews, and strategy sessions for the Kensington merger. By Friday morning, when his executive assistant Valencia brought his daily schedule and coffee, Nathaniel had almost forgotten about the manila envelope now buried beneath contracts on his home office desk. Your 10 a.m. with the marketing team is confirmed, and legal sent over the revised terms for Kensington, Valencia reported efficiently. Also, Mrs. Pierce called to cancel your joint appearance at the Children's Hospital Gala next weekend. Nathaniel glanced up briefly. Did she say why? No, sir. Should I find a replacement for the event? He waved dismissively. Have Adira go in my place. She knows the talking points for potential investors. That evening, he arrived home later than usual. The penthouse was quiet and dimly lit. Olivia's keys hung in their usual place, but there was no sign of her. A note on the counter informed him that she'd left dinner in the warming drawer. He ate alone in the kitchen, scrolling through emails on his tablet. The silence didn't particularly register as unusual. They had often operated on different schedules in recent years. If he noticed the empty vase where fresh flowers usually stood, or the absence of Olivia's sketchbook from the coffee table, he didn't dwell on it. This was simply a cooling-off period, he reasoned. She was making a point, creating distance to emphasize her dissatisfaction. The strategy was familiar to him. Isolation often preceded a negotiation advantage. He would let her have this small victory before they inevitably returned to their normal arrangement. The following Wednesday, Nathaniel sat at the head of Vertex's glass conference table, leading the board through quarterly projections. The room hummed with the energy of success, graphs trending upward, acquisition targets identified, expansion plans proceeding ahead of schedule. The European market share has increased by 17%, he noted, advancing to the next slide. Our Berlin office will be fully operational by next quarter, allowing us to... A knock interrupted his flow. Valencia entered, her typically composed expression now tight with concern. "I apologize for the interruption, Mr. Pierce," she said. "There's an urgent call you need to take." Nathaniel frowned. "We're in the middle of something critical. Take a message." "Sir, it's Miss Harper Monroe. She says it's about Mrs. Pierce. She was quite insistent that you take the call immediately." Harper, Olivia's closest friend since college, had never contacted him directly at work. A cold sensation settled in Nathaniel's stomach. 5-minute break, he announced to the room, already moving toward the door. In his office, he picked up the phone. "Harper, what's going on?" "Nathaniel." Her voice was tense, the usual coolness she reserved for him now edged with urgency. "Olivia collapsed at the gallery. She's been taken to Metropolitan Hospital." The world seemed to tilt beneath him. "Collapsed? What happened? Is she okay? The doctors are with her now. Just get here." "Which gallery?" he asked, suddenly realizing he had no idea where his wife had been. A pause. "Prism Gallery on Westbrook Avenue. She's been working there for months." The accusation in Harper's tone was unmistakable. Nathaniel didn't bother returning to the boardroom. He instructed Valencia to have Adira continue the meeting and left the building, his mind racing. Working at a gallery? Olivia hadn't mentioned any job. The revelation disoriented him almost as much as the news of her collapse. His driver broke multiple traffic laws getting to Metropolitan Hospital. Throughout the 15-minute journey, Nathaniel tried calling Olivia's phone repeatedly, each unanswered ring increasing his anxiety. The emergency department buzzed with controlled chaos as Nathaniel pushed through the automatic doors. He spotted Harper immediately, her tall frame and distinctive silver-streaked hair standing out as she paced near the reception desk. Her expression when she saw him wasn't relief, but something harder, almost accusatory. "Where is she?" he demanded, foregoing any greeting. "Room 412. They've stabilized her, but they're running more tests." As they walked toward the elevators, Nathaniel tried to make sense of the situation. What exactly happened? Was it exhaustion? Stress? Harper stopped walking and turned to face him fully. "You really don't know anything, do you? About what?" Irritation edged into his voice. This wasn't the time for Harper's typical disapproval of him. "About your wife," she replied, her voice low but intense. "About what she's been going through for months while you've been too busy to notice." "I don't have time for cryptic comments, Harper. Olivia and I have been going through some adjustments in our relationship, but..." "Adjustments?" Harper's laugh held no humor. "Is that what you call it when your wife battles cancer alone because her husband can't be bothered to pay attention?" The word hit him like a physical blow. "Cancer? What are you talking about?" Harper's eyes widened. "Oh my God, you actually don't know." She shook her head slowly. "She told me you were busy, that she was waiting for the right time to tell you. I assumed that meant you at least knew she was sick." The elevator arrived, but Nathaniel remained frozen. "That's not possible. I would have known if Olivia had cancer. Would you?" Harper challenged, echoing Olivia's words from that morning in his office. "When was the last time you noticed anything about her that wasn't related to how she looked at one of your corporate events?" The accusation stung precisely because Nathaniel couldn't immediately refute it. He followed Harper into the elevator in silence, his mind frantically searching for signs he might have missed, conversations that suddenly held new meaning. "What kind?" he finally asked, his voice barely audible. "Chronic myeloid leukemia, diagnosed 8 months ago." The elevator doors opened to the 4th floor, and Nathaniel stepped out feeling as though he were moving through water, everything slowed and distorted by the weight of this revelation. Dr. Riya Patel met them outside room 412, clipboard in hand. "Mr. Pierce?" "I'm Dr. Patel, your wife's oncologist." Oncologist. The word echoed in Nathaniel's mind, making the situation suddenly, horribly real. "How is she?" he managed to ask. "Stable now." Today's episode was primarily due to a combination of overexertion and side effects from her medication. We've adjusted her dosage and will keep her overnight for observation. "Can I see her?" Dr. Patel studied him briefly. Yes, but keep it brief. She needs rest. She hesitated, then added, Mrs. Pierce has been extraordinarily strong throughout her treatment. You should be very proud of how she's handling this. The subtle emphasis on you suggested the doctor knew exactly how uninvolved he had been. Shame heated Nathaniel's face as he nodded and moved toward the door. Olivia lay against white pillows, an IV line running into her left arm, a monitoring device clipped to her finger. She looked pale, yes, but also somehow determined even in her weakened state. Her eyes opened as he approached, registering first surprise, then wariness. Olivia, he whispered, emotion constricting his throat as he took the chair beside her bed. Harper called you, she said. Not a question. Why didn't you? The words came out more accusatory than he intended. You were in meetings all day, she replied, her voice tired. Important meetings, as always. The phrase echoed their conversation from a week ago, when he dismissed the divorce papers. Had she been trying to tell him even then? Why didn't you tell me you were sick? He asked, his voice barely controlled. I tried, Nathaniel. No accusation in her tone, just exhaustion. 3 times I scheduled dinner specifically to talk about it. Each time you canceled for work. I left my medical reports on your desk last month with a note asking you to review them. You returned them with a post-it asking Valencia to file these without opening the envelope. The memory struck him with painful clarity. He had assumed they were household documents, insurance papers, or property tax statements, nothing that required his immediate attention. I didn't know, he said weakly. I know you didn't, she replied. That's the problem. Nathaniel stared at the monitoring equipment, tracking Olivia's heartbeat and steady green pulses. 8 months. His wife had been fighting cancer for 8 months while he had been fighting for market share and acquisition deals. The gallery, he said suddenly. Harper said you collapsed at a gallery. You're working there? Yes. Prism Gallery downtown. I curate their emerging artist program. Since when? 6 months. A ghost of a smile touched her lips. I tried to tell you about that too. Memories began surfacing. Olivia mentioning a new project over breakfast as he checked emails. A calendar note about an opening that he assumed was another charity event. A business card on their entry table with the Prism logo that he'd never questioned. Why would you need to work? We don't need the money. It was never about money, she said, a hint of strength returning to her voice. It was about purpose, about being valued for my mind rather than as an accessory to your success. Each word peeled back layers of willful blindness. Had he really reduced his vibrant, talented wife to an accessory? The thought sickened him. The divorce papers. He began, the connection suddenly clear. We're never about money or your success, she finished for him. I don't want to spend whatever time I have left feeling invisible in my own home. Whatever time I have left. The phrase cut through him like a blade. How serious is it? He asked, forcing himself to meet her eyes. The cancer? CML is chronic. With treatment, many patients live relatively normal lives for years, even decades. But the medications have side effects, and there's always the risk of progression. She spoke with the practiced tone of someone who had explained this many times, just never to him. And today, what happened? I pushed too hard. The exhibition opens next week, and I was determined to finish the installation despite feeling weak. Then everything just went dark. Nathaniel's mind flashed to his own schedule that day. The board meeting, lunch with potential investors, calls with the Tokyo office. All of it suddenly seemed meaningless compared to the fact that his wife had collapsed alone in a gallery he didn't know she worked at, fighting a disease he didn't know she had. I've been... He started, but words failed him. A dedicated CEO, she supplied. Focused on your goals, exactly who you've always been. No, he shook his head. A terrible husband. Completely blind to what matters. A nurse entered to check Olivia's vital signs, and Nathaniel stood back, watching as the medical professional chatted easily with his wife, clearly familiar with her. How many appointments had Olivia attended alone? How many times had she received difficult news without anyone to hold her hand? As the full reality of his failures crashed over him, Nathaniel felt something break inside, the carefully constructed wall between his business persona and his humanity. For the first time in years, the shark found himself completely out of his depth, facing a situation no amount of money or power could control. His wife had been fighting for her life while he had been fighting for profit margins, and he hadn't even noticed. Morning light filtered through the hospital blinds as Dr. Patel entered room 412. Nathaniel had spent the night in the uncomfortable chair beside Olivia's bed, watching the steady rise and fall of her chest, afraid to close his eyes lest she'd disappear. Mr. Pierce, could we speak outside for a moment? Dr. Patel requested, her clipboard tucked under one arm. In the hallway, the doctor's professional demeanor remained intact, but her eyes held a mix of compassion and assessment. Mrs. Pierce mentioned you might have questions about her condition. I need to understand everything, Nathaniel said, his voice hoarse from the sleepless night. The diagnosis, treatment plan, prognosis, all of it. Dr. Patel nodded. Chronic myeloid leukemia is a type of cancer that affects the blood-forming cells in bone marrow. CML occurs when a genetic change takes place in immature blood cells, causing them to produce too many white blood cells. And the treatment? Your wife has been on targeted therapy, specifically tyrosine kinase inhibitors, for 8 months. These medications target the protein that causes the leukemia cells to grow. Dr. Patel consulted her notes. Her response has been good, though she's experienced more significant side effects than some patients, including fatigue, nausea, and occasional dizziness. Side effects I completely missed, Nathaniel murmured. The doctor continued professionally. With continued treatment, many CML patients live long, relatively normal lives. However, it requires consistent care, minimal stress, and a strong support system. The words support system hung in the air between them, a silent indictment. What about yesterday's collapse? A combination of factors. The medication can cause anemia, which leads to fatigue. Add stress, overexertion, and possibly not eating regularly. She gave him a pointed look, and the body simply shuts down. We've adjusted her medication dosage and added supplements for the anemia. Is there anything else I should know? Nathaniel asked, struggling to process everything. Yes. Your wife will likely need a bone marrow transplant eventually. We're monitoring her closely, but you should both be prepared for that possibility. Nathaniel ran a hand through his disheveled hair. When might that happen? It could be months or years. It depends on how she responds to continued treatment. The clinical terms and medical jargon felt surreal, as though they were discussing a stranger rather than the woman he'd shared his life with for over a decade. Dr. Patel, Nathaniel's voice dropped lower. How serious is this, really? Her expression softened slightly. CML is not immediately life-threatening with proper treatment.
But it is serious, Mr. Pierce.
It requires vigilant management and significant lifestyle adjustments. She paused. Your wife has been handling all of this with remarkable grace. All by herself, the unspoken words hung between them. After Dr. Patel left, Nathaniel returned to Olivia's room, seeing it with new awareness. The woman in the bed was thinner than he remembered, her collarbones more pronounced, her cheeks less full. How had he not noticed these changes? When Olivia woke, she found him staring at her with an intensity she hadn't seen in years. You should go home and change, she said softly. You've been in that suit since yesterday. I spoke with Dr. Patel, he replied, ignoring her suggestion. She explained everything about the CML. Olivia nodded, adjusting herself to sit more upright in the bed. She's excellent. I was fortunate she had an opening in her practice. How did you find her? The question revealed yet another gap in his knowledge. Harper's cousin had the same diagnosis 5 years ago. She connected us. Olivia's matter-of-fact tone made it clear this was all routine for her now. Knowledge and connections he should have been part of. I keep thinking about all the signs I missed, Nathaniel admitted. It's like trying to assemble a puzzle when you didn't even know the pieces existed. Olivia studied him for a moment. The night of the Vertex Charity Gala in February, I nearly fainted in the bathroom. Harper helped me recover before rejoining the party. You commented that I looked pale, and I said I was just tired. I remember, he said slowly. I suggested you see a nutritionist. The week you were preparing for the Boston presentation, I had my first bone marrow biopsy. I could barely walk the next day. You asked why I was moving slowly, and I said I'd pulled a muscle at yoga. Each example landed like a blow, and I never questioned any of it, he realized aloud. The medications made me nauseated for weeks. I lost 12 pounds. You mentioned once that my new diet must be working well. Nathaniel closed his eyes, the shame almost unbearable. I told everyone at the McKinley dinner how disciplined you were, sticking to your fitness regimen while I couldn't resist dessert. You saw what you expected to see, Olivia said without accusation. A wife maintaining appearances, supporting your career, existing in the background of your life. The truth of her words cut deeper than any angry accusation could have. He had reduced their marriage to a convenient arrangement, his wife to a pleasant accessory to his success. The night I was diagnosed, she continued quietly, you were in Singapore closing the Lee Chen deal. I waited up all night for your call, planning to tell you immediately. I remember calling around 3 a.m. your time, he said, the memory suddenly vivid. You were so excited about the merger. You talked for 20 minutes about how it would transform Vertex's market position in Asia. And you never said a word about the diagnosis, he realized with growing horror. No, she agreed. I couldn't bring myself to diminish your moment of triumph. The hospital discharged Olivia the following afternoon with instructions for rest and a modified medication schedule. Nathaniel insisted on taking her home himself, canceling 3 days of meetings despite her protests. Adira can handle it, he said firmly, helping her into the car. As they drove through downtown, Olivia gestured toward a modest storefront with large windows. That's Prism, she said. The gallery where I work. Nathaniel instructed his driver to pull over, studying the space from the car. Through the windows, he could see white walls displaying vibrant artwork, a few visitors moving slowly between pieces. Tell me about it, he requested, turning to face her. Something in his sincere attention seemed to surprise her. It's a small operation focused on emerging artists, people with tremendous talent but limited exposure. Theo, the owner, started it after retiring from the Museum of Modern Art. He wanted to create opportunities for artists who might fall through the cracks of the commercial art world. And what do you do there? I curate the Emerging Artists program. I review portfolios, mentor young artists on presentation and technique, arrange exhibitions, write catalog essays. Her voice gained strength as she spoke, her passion evident. Last month, we placed 3 artists in major collections and secured a grant to expand our community workshops. Nathaniel listened, truly listened, hearing not just her words but the energy behind them. This was the Olivia he had fallen in love with, passionate, purposeful, alive with creative vision. How did I not know about any of this? He asked, the question directed more at himself than her. I mentioned the gallery several times when I first started volunteering. You nodded and changed the subject to the Anderson contract. No accusation in her tone, just stating facts. After a while, it seemed easier to keep my worlds separate. And the pay? He immediately regretted the question, recognizing how it revealed his transactional mindset. Minimal, she admitted with a small smile. But the work feeds my soul in ways that our charity board positions never did. These artists trust me with their dreams, Nathaniel. That's worth more than any salary. As they continued home, Nathaniel realized Olivia had created an entire life apart from him. Meaningful work, new relationships, a purpose that energized her, while he had been completely unaware. Will you show me your work sometime? He asked tentatively. When you're feeling stronger? The question seemed to catch her off guard. You want to see the gallery? I want to see your world, he clarified. The part of your life I've been missing. Friends, I need to pause our story here because we've reached a critical moment that might resonate with many of you. Have you ever discovered something important about someone you love that you should have known all along? Or perhaps you've been like Olivia, silently fighting battles while those around you remain unaware. Take a moment to reflect on your own relationships. Are there conversations you've been avoiding? Signs you might be missing? If this story is touching your heart, please hit that like button and share your thoughts in the comments. Your experiences could provide valuable insight to others facing similar situations. And if you haven't subscribed yet, now is the perfect moment. Our channel explores these profound human experiences every week, offering stories that might just change how you view your own relationships. Now, let's return to Nathaniel and Olivia as they face the reality of their situation. Back at the penthouse, the space felt different to Nathaniel. Less like the showcase property he'd proudly acquired, and more like a beautiful, empty shell. He noticed details he'd overlooked for years. Olivia's paintings were gone from the walls, replaced with generic abstracts. Her collection of art books no longer lined the built-in shelves. The small ceramic studio she'd set up in the spare room had been converted to storage. She had been systematically removing herself from their shared space, and he hadn't even noticed. As Olivia settled on the living room couch, wrapped in a soft throw blanket, Nathaniel brought her tea, something he couldn't remember doing since their early days together. Thank you, she said, surprise evident in her voice. He sat across from her, leaning forward with his elbows on his knees. I've been going over everything Dr. Patel told me, everything you've shared in the last 2 days. I can't stop thinking about one thing. What's that? You've been fighting this battle entirely alone because of me. His voice cracked. Not because I couldn't help, but because I chose not to see what was happening right in front of me. Nathaniel, please let me finish. He took a deep breath. I've spent years perfecting the art of strategic decision-making. I can predict market trends, anticipate competitors' moves, identify potential acquisition targets before they know they're for sale. But I completely failed to see that my wife, the woman who believed in me when no one else did, was suffering. Tears gathered in Olivia's eyes, but she remained silent, allowing him to continue. I don't expect you to forgive me, he said quietly. I don't deserve forgiveness. But I want you to know that I see you now. I see what I've done and what I've failed to do, and I am deeply, profoundly sorry. What exactly are you sorry for? She asked, her voice gentle but probing. The question caught him off guard. In business, apologies were strategic, quick acknowledgments designed to move past problems efficiently. But this required something deeper. I'm sorry for becoming someone who values quarterly reports more than conversations with you, he began slowly. for dismissing your attempts to connect as distractions, for treating our marriage like a completed acquisition rather than a living relationship that needed nurturing. His voice grew stronger as the truth poured out. I'm sorry I made you feel so alone that you couldn't share your diagnosis with me, that you built a separate life because I left no room for you in mine, that you had to face doctor appointments and treatments without support. Tears flowed freely down his cheeks now, something that hadn't happened since his father's funeral 15 years earlier. Most of all, he continued, I'm sorry I broke my promise to be your partner. We were supposed to face life's challenges together, and when the biggest challenge came, you couldn't even tell me about it. Olivia reached across the space between them, gently touching his hand. Thank you for saying that. The divorce papers, he said, meeting her eyes. I understand now why you filed them, and I won't contest anything you want. She studied him for a long moment. This isn't about the legal end of our marriage, Nathaniel. It's about acknowledging that what we have isn't really a marriage anymore. It's an arrangement, a habit, a public image. I want more than that for whatever time I have left. So do I, he said, with a conviction that surprised even him. I want to be here, really here, for whatever comes next. Not because I feel guilty or responsible, but because I remember who we were together, who we could be again. It's not that simple, she cautioned. You can't just decide to care again and expect everything to go back to how it was. I know, he nodded. I don't expect you to trust my words after years of showing you they mean nothing. But I'm asking for a chance to show you that I can change, that I want to change. The silence between them felt different now, not the empty absence of connection, but the pregnant pause of possibility. One day at a time, Olivia finally said. That's all any of us really have. It wasn't forgiveness or reconciliation. It wasn't even a promise to reconsider the divorce. But in those 5 simple words, Nathaniel heard something he desperately needed, a chance to prove that his awakening was real. The day after bringing Olivia home from the hospital, Nathaniel woke before dawn. While she slept in the guest bedroom she'd claimed as her own, he sat at his desk with a legal pad, making a list of everything he needed to learn. He started with the basics: medical journals, online forums for CML patients and caregivers, treatment protocols, and success rates. By 7 a.m., his pad contained 3 pages of notes, questions, and resources. When Valencia called about his absence from the morning executive meeting, he was direct. I won't be in for the foreseeable future. Family emergency. Route all essential matters through Adira. Is everything all right, sir? Genuine concern colored her typically professional tone. No, he answered honestly, but I'm hoping it will be. For the next 3 days, Nathaniel immersed himself in understanding chronic myeloid leukemia. He contacted leading researchers, joined patient support groups, and reviewed Olivia's complete medical file. The technical language that had initially seemed impenetrable began making sense as he applied the same focused intensity he once reserved for acquisition targets. He created spreadsheets tracking medication schedules, potential side effects, and nutritional recommendations. He researched clinical trials and alternative treatments, evaluating each with the analytical precision that had made him successful in business. On the 4th morning, Olivia found him asleep at the dining room table, surrounded by medical printouts and half-empty coffee cups. Nathaniel? She touched his shoulder gently. He jerked awake, papers sticking to his cheek. Sorry, I was just reviewing the latest research on TKI resistance patterns. Olivia glanced at his notes, detailed, organized, color-coded for priority. You've been studying my condition. I needed to understand what we're facing, he said, straightening the papers. Knowledge is power. A small smile touched her lips. That sounds like the Nathaniel I used to know. That afternoon, he accompanied her to a regular appointment with Dr. Patel. As they sat in the waiting room, he noticed how the staff greeted Olivia by name, asking about her latest exhibition. These people knew more about his wife's daily life than he did. During the consultation, Nathaniel asked specific, informed questions about treatment options and long-term management strategies. Dr. Patel's initial surprise gave way to cautious approval as she realized he had done his homework. The targeted therapy is working well, she explained, reviewing Olivia's latest blood work. But we need to monitor for resistance to the current medication. About 25% of patients eventually require a different approach. What about the bone marrow transplant option? Nathaniel asked. Under what circumstances would that become necessary? As Dr. Patel outlined various scenarios, Nathaniel took detailed notes. Olivia watched him with an expression he couldn't quite read, something between amazement and wariness. Later, as they walked to the car, she said quietly, You didn't have to learn all this, you know? Yes, he replied simply. I did. 2 weeks after Olivia's collapse, Nathaniel called an emergency board meeting at Vertex. The executive team gathered in the glass-walled conference room, confusion evident on their faces. Nathaniel Pierce never called emergency meetings. He planned everything meticulously. Thank you all for coming on short notice, he began, standing at the head of the table in a casual button-down rather than his usual tailored suit. I've asked you here to announce a significant change in leadership structure. The room grew still, executives exchanging wary glances. Effective immediately, I'll be shifting to a part-time advisory role as chairman. Adira will take over as CEO, with full operational control of Vertex. Murmurs rippled through the room. Adira Martinez, their brilliant coup, straightened in her chair, her composed expression betraying only a flicker of surprise. May I ask what prompted this decision? She inquired, voicing what everyone was thinking. Nathaniel surveyed the faces around the table, people who knew everything about his business philosophy but nothing about his personal life. My wife is battling cancer, he stated simply. I've been an absent husband for years, and I won't be an absent caregiver now when she needs me most. The stunned silence that followed told him everything about the persona he had cultivated. The shark announcing he was swimming away from the feeding frenzy to prioritize family? Unthinkable. But the Kensington merger, began the CFO. We'll proceed under Adira's guidance, Nathaniel finished firmly. She's been effectively running daily operations for months anyway, while I've been focused on expansion. After addressing practical transition questions, Nathaniel pulled Adira aside. You've earned this, he told her. Not because of my personal situation, but because you're the best person for the job. Thank you for your confidence, she replied, but I have to ask. Are you sure about this? Vertex has been your life. That's precisely the problem, he admitted. I made it my entire life when it should have been just one part. Back at home, he found Olivia in her small studio space, organizing supplies. Her movements were careful, measured, the habits of someone accustomed to conserving energy. How did the board take it? She asked without looking up. Better than expected. Adira will make an exceptional CEO. Olivia turned to face him. And you're really okay with stepping back after everything you've built? The company will continue to grow without my daily involvement, he said. Other things won't. She studied him, her artist's eye noting the changes in his posture, the absence of the tension that typically radiated from him. This isn't just about my diagnosis, is it? No, he admitted. It's about realizing I've been climbing a ladder leaning against the wrong wall. The following Tuesday marked Olivia's first treatment session since her hospitalization. As they entered the oncology center, Nathaniel noticed how she greeted the staff like old friends, asking about children by name and remembering personal details. Mrs. Pierce, your usual chair is ready, called a nurse with bright purple streaks in her hair. And this must be your husband. First time joining us? Yes, Nathaniel extended his hand. Nathaniel Pierce, Jenny Voss. I've been Olivia's infusion nurse since day one. Her handshake was firm, her eyes assessing. She's one of our favorites. The treatment area was surprisingly bright, with comfortable recliners arranged to allow both privacy and conversation. Olivia settled into her chair with practiced ease while Jenny connected her to the fourth. It takes about 2 hours, Olivia explained. I usually bring sketches to work on, but I brought something, Nathaniel interjected, pulling out a small wrapped package. I thought it might help pass the time. Inside was a travel chess set, a reminder of their early dating days when they'd play for hours in coffee shops, planning their futures between moves. Olivia's fingers traced the wooden pieces. You remembered. I remember everything, he said quietly. I just forgot what mattered. As the medication flowed through the four, they played 3 games, talking more than they had in years. Nathaniel learned about Jenny's son who was starting college, about the elderly patient 2 chairs over who had been in remission for 15 years, about the support group Olivia attended monthly. When dizziness hit her toward the end of the session, he was there with water and a steady hand. When nausea followed during the car ride home, he knew which pressure points to massage from his research. When fatigue overwhelmed her that evening, he had already prepared a light meal that would be gentle on her stomach. The next day, feeling stronger, Olivia mentioned needing to check on the upcoming exhibition at Prism. I'll take you, Nathaniel offered. You don't have to do that, she said. I know you have calls. Nothing that can't wait, he assured her. The gallery was smaller than he'd imagined, a converted storefront with high ceilings and beautiful natural light. Theo, the owner, greeted Olivia with a warm hug before eyeing Nathaniel with undisguised curiosity. So this is the famous husband, he said, extending his hand. I was beginning to think you were a figment of Olivia's imagination. As Olivia reviewed the exhibition layout with Theo, Nathaniel explored the space, genuinely studying the artwork. A series of large-scale photographs caught his attention, urban landscapes with unexpected moments of natural beauty emerging from concrete and steel. Those are Maya Chen's work, Olivia explained, joining him. She's a former architectural student who became fascinated with how nature reclaims urban spaces. That's her first major series. The pride in Olivia's voice was unmistakable. You discovered her? I saw her portfolio when she applied for our mentorship program. Her technical skill was obvious, but it was her vision that stood out, finding beauty in overlooked places. As Olivia guided him through the exhibition, explaining each artist's journey and technique, Nathaniel witnessed a side of his wife he had forgotten existed, the passionate advocate, the insightful critic, the nurturing mentor. Her entire being seemed more vibrant here among these creative minds than it ever did at corporate galas. "You're amazing at this," he said sincerely. "These artists are lucky to have you in their corner." She smiled, a genuine smile that reached her eyes. "This is what I was trying to tell you about all those years ago, the joy of helping someone else's light shine brighter." 3 weeks into their new routine, they settled into a pattern. Mornings spent reviewing medical updates and handling Nathaniel's reduced work responsibilities. Afternoons at the gallery or resting at home, depending on Olivia's energy levels. Evenings together, actually together, without phones or laptops interrupting their conversations. After dinner one night, as they sat on their balcony watching the city lights, Olivia asked the question that had been lingering between them. "Why are you really doing all this, Nathaniel? Is it guilt, fear, pity?" He considered the question carefully, understanding its importance. In business, he would have calculated the most strategic answer. Now, he offered only truth. At first, it was shock and guilt, he admitted. I couldn't believe I'd missed something so fundamental. Then came fear, the realization that I could lose you before I ever really found you again. He turned to face her directly. But now? Now it's something else entirely. I'm discovering parts of myself I buried years ago under quarterly reports and acquisition strategies. I'm remembering what it feels like to care about something that can't be measured in market share. And when I'm better, if the treatments continue working and this becomes a manageable condition rather than a crisis, she pressed, will you go back to being the shark? I don't think I can, he said softly. That version of me missed everything that mattered. He might have built an impressive company, but he built nothing of real value. Olivia studied him in the fading light. I've been watching you these past weeks, trying to determine if this is real or just an elaborate apology that will fade once the immediate crisis passes. And your conclusion? I'm still deciding, she answered honestly, but I see glimpses of the man I married, the one who used to talk about making a difference, not just making money. The one who valued creativity as much as strategy. Nathaniel reached for her hand cautiously. I'm trying to be worthy of another chance, Olivia, not just with your illness, but with all of it. Being a true partner, supporting your dreams the way you once supported mine. I need you to understand something, she said, her fingers closing around his. If we try again, really try, it can't be because you feel obligated. It can't be a project you're managing or a problem you're solving. It has to be because you genuinely want the life we build together, whatever that looks like. I want that more than I've wanted anything in years, he replied. I'm just not sure I deserve it. That, she said with a hint of a smile, is actually a good start. The next morning, Nathaniel arrived at the breakfast table with a folder containing several documents. What's this? Olivia asked, accepting the file. Plans, he replied, pouring coffee for both of them, for your consideration. Inside, she found detailed proposals, establishing a foundation to fund cancer research and art therapy programs, renovating the unused guest house at their weekend property into a fully equipped art studio, a draft schedule balancing his reduced work responsibilities with her treatment and gallery commitments. You've been busy, she observed, scanning the meticulously prepared materials. I wanted you to see that I'm thinking long-term, he explained. Not just responding to the immediate situation. She set the folder aside. These are impressive plans, Nathaniel. Very thorough, but... He heard the hesitation in her voice. But life with cancer isn't something you can organize into neat spreadsheets and project timelines. Some days I'll feel fine, and we can tackle the world together. Other days, getting dressed will be my biggest achievement. I know that, he insisted. These aren't rigid expectations, they're possibilities, things we could build together when you feel able. Olivia considered this. The foundation is a good idea, especially the art therapy component. I thought so too. I've seen how your work at the gallery energizes you even on difficult days. That connection between creativity and healing seems powerful. She looked at him with new appreciation. You've been paying attention. I'm trying to, he said simply. Later that week, during one of her stronger days, Olivia suggested they visit the gallery together. A new artist was installing work that she thought might interest him. As they walked through downtown, moving at a pace that accommodated her reduced stamina, Nathaniel found himself noticing details of the city he'd rushed past for years. Architectural elements on buildings, a changing light on glass surfaces, the rhythm of street life. You're quiet, Olivia observed. I'm seeing the city through different eyes, he admitted. I used to measure these blocks only in terms of real estate values and development potential. At the gallery, a young man was carefully arranging metal sculptures, complex geometric forms that seemed to shift and change as viewers moved around them. "Nathaniel, this is Luis Mendez," Olivia introduced them, "one of our most promising sculptors." Luis, barely in his 20s with paint-stained hands and intense focus, nodded respectfully. "Mrs. Pierce has been an incredible mentor. This exhibition wouldn't exist without her guidance." As Olivia helped Luis adjust lighting for maximum impact on his pieces, Nathaniel watched their collaboration with genuine interest. The young artist clearly valued Olivia's opinion, incorporating her suggestions while maintaining his artistic vision. "You've built something meaningful here," Nathaniel said later as they walked home. "These artists trust you completely. Trust is earned," she replied. "I show up consistently. I listen to their concerns. I put their needs before my ego. Basic principles of any good relationship, really." The gentle rebuke wasn't lost on him. "Principles I failed to apply to us." "Yes," she agreed without hostility. "But you're learning." That night, as they prepared for bed, still in separate rooms, Olivia paused in his doorway. "The foundation idea," she said. "I'd like to help develop it." "If you're serious, I am," he assured her. "Partners in this, as we should have been in everything." She nodded, a small but significant gesture of cautious acceptance. "Good night, Nathaniel." "Good night, Olivia." As her footsteps retreated down the hall, Nathaniel recognized the moment for what it was, not forgiveness or reconciliation, but something equally precious, the first fragile bridge across the chasm he had created between them, a tentative path toward possibility. 3 months after Olivia's hospitalization, Nathaniel sat at the head of the Vertex conference table. Sunlight streamed through the glass walls, illuminating the assembled executive team. Unlike previous meetings where tension dominated the atmosphere, today a sense of clarity filled the room. "Thank you all for coming," Nathaniel began, his posture relaxed yet confident. "As you know, over the past quarter I've been operating in a reduced capacity as Adira has taken on day-to-day leadership responsibilities." The executives nodded, now accustomed to the arrangement that had initially shocked them. "The restructuring plan is complete," he continued. "Effective immediately, I'll be shifting to a permanent part-time advisory role as chairman. Adira will officially take over as CEO." Despite the preparation, murmurs of surprise filled the room. Marcus Whiting, the veteran CFO who had been with Vertex since its early days, leaned forward. "This is quite a significant change, Nathaniel. Are you certain about this direction?" Nathaniel smiled, a genuine expression, not the calculated one he'd worn for years. "More certain than I've been about any decision in my career." Adira, composed as always, asked the question everyone was thinking. "May I ask what prompted this decision?" 3 months ago, you were pursuing expansion on 3 continents simultaneously." Nathaniel glanced at the photo on his phone background, Olivia at the gallery opening last week, her eyes bright with purpose despite the physical toll of her treatments. An image that would have been impossible in their previous life. "Life is too short to spend it all in this room," he answered simply. "I've neglected what truly matters, and I'm not making that mistake anymore." "And the Dubai expansion?" pressed the Director of International Markets. "We'll proceed under Adira's leadership, with my advisory input as needed." He turned to his successor. "Adira has demonstrated exceptional judgment and vision. Vertex isn't just in good hands, it's in better hands." As the meeting concluded and executives filed out, Marcus lingered behind. "I've known you for a decade, Nathaniel," the older man said quietly. "I've never seen you walk away from anything." "I'm not walking away," Nathaniel corrected. "I'm walking towards something more important." Marcus nodded thoughtfully. "How is Olivia doing?" "She has good days and challenging ones. The treatments are working, but they take a toll." Nathaniel gathered his notes. "We take each day as it comes, for what it's worth," Marcus said, heading toward the door. "I like this version of you better." Nathaniel smiled. "Strangely enough, so do I." Nathaniel's office at home underwent the most dramatic transformation. Gone was the imposing mahogany desk that dominated the space, replaced with a more modest workstation positioned to face the windows rather than the door. The wall, once covered with industry awards and financial charts, now displayed a calendar tracking Olivia's treatment schedule, gallery events, and foundation planning milestones. His morning routine shifted as well. The 5 a.m. workouts focused solely on physical performance gave way to 7 a.m. yoga sessions with Olivia, gentler movements that accommodated her changing energy levels while helping him learn patience and presence. "You're getting better at the balancing poses," she commented one morning as he managed to hold tree pose without wobbling. "Amazing what happens when you actually focus on what you're doing instead of mentally reviewing acquisition strategies," he replied with a self-deprecating smile. Twice weekly he accompanied her to treatments, bringing work only when she was resting. The medical staff now greeted him by name, and he knew which nurses had children in college and which technicians were studying for advanced certifications. His work with Vertex continued, but within strict boundaries. 3 days weekly, he reviewed strategic decisions and mentored the leadership team. Conference calls happened during scheduled hours, never interrupting dinner or treatment days. Emails received responses within 24 hours rather than 24 minutes. The most significant change came in how he engaged with the Pierce Foundation, which had moved from concept to reality with remarkable speed. Working alongside Olivia, he applied his business acumen to maximize impact rather than profit. They established 3 core initiatives: funding innovative cancer research, creating art therapy programs and treatment centers, and providing grants to artists facing medical hardships. "You've built an entirely new life in just 3 months," observed Dr. Patel during one of Olivia's checkups. "Not built," Nathaniel corrected. "Discovered. It was always there beneath the surface, waiting for me to pay attention." As Olivia's strength gradually improved with adjusted medications, they established new traditions. Sunday mornings were spent at local art exhibitions. Wednesday evenings they hosted dinner for the foundation team in their home, Nathaniel cooking meals he learned from online classes taken during her rest periods. Most evenings ended with them on their balcony, wrapped in blankets against the evening chill, discussing everything from exhibition concepts to childhood memories to hopes for the foundation's future. "I keep waiting," Olivia admitted one night, "for you to grow restless with this slower pace, this focus on quality over quantity. I won't lie, sometimes I miss the adrenaline rush of closing a major deal," he acknowledged. "But I've never felt more purposeful than I do now, building something that actually helps people." On a crisp Saturday evening 3 months after Olivia's hospitalization, the Pierce Penthouse hosted its first dinner party since Nathaniel's transformation. Unlike the networking events of previous years, where conversations revolved around market trends and strategic alliances, the night's gathering brought together people who genuinely mattered in their lives. The dining table, usually set with formal precision for impressing business associates, now held mismatched serving dishes and colorful flowers selected that morning from the farmer's market. Laughter echoed through rooms that had previously witnessed only carefully measured small talk. Harper arrived first, her initial coolness toward Nathaniel gradually warming as she observed his interactions with Olivia. "You actually made this paella yourself?" she asked skeptically as he served her. "Complete with multiple failed attempts this week," he confirmed. "Our housekeeper has been very patient with my learning curve." Theo from the gallery came with his husband Miguel, bringing a sculpture from one of their emerging artists as a gift. Dr. Patel joined them for dessert after finishing her hospital rounds. Adira arrived with her family, her children immediately gravitating to the art supplies Nathaniel had thoughtfully set up in the corner. "This is different," Harper murmured to Olivia as they watched Nathaniel showing Adira's daughter how to mix watercolors, a skill Olivia had taught him just last week. "Everything is different," Olivia agreed, her eyes following her husband's movements. "Including him." Later, as conversations flowed around the table, Nathaniel found himself truly present, not mentally reviewing business strategies or calculating the professional advantage of each interaction, but actually listening to the people gathered in his home. Luis, the young sculptor from the gallery, described his upcoming installation with passionate hand gestures. Mrs. Pierce suggested incorporating light elements to highlight the textural contrasts in the metal. "Olivia has an extraordinary eye for how different elements interact," Nathaniel agreed. "She helped me redesign Vertex's original interface when users couldn't navigate it intuitively." Olivia looked up in surprise. "You remember that?" "Of course. You stayed up 3 nights straight, redesigning everything from the color scheme to the icon placement. The venture capitalists who had been hesitant suddenly couldn't wait to invest once they saw your version." As the evening progressed, Nathaniel realized something profound. This wasn't a strategic gathering of useful contacts or a performance of success. It was simply people connecting authentically, finding joy in shared conversation and genuine interest in one another's lives. When Dr. Patel mentioned a new art therapy program at the Children's Hospital, lacking proper supplies, Theo immediately offered gallery connections who could help. When Adira described her daughter's struggle with math anxiety, Harper suggested techniques from her teaching days. Solutions emerged organically from genuine care rather than obligation or advantage. Looking around the table at the laughter and conversation, Nathaniel understood what had been missing from the carefully orchestrated dinner parties of their past. It wasn't just authenticity, it was purpose beyond impression, connection beyond convenience. After their guests departed, Olivia and Nathaniel moved to the living room, comfortable fatigue settling over them. "That was nice," she said softly, curling into the corner of the sofa. "Different, but nice." "It was real," he replied. "No agendas, no networking, just people actually enjoying each other's company." Olivia studied him in the soft lamplight. "You've changed, Nathaniel. Not just your schedule or priorities, but something deeper. I had a powerful wake-up call. He met her gaze directly. Nearly losing someone has a way of clarifying what matters. She was quiet for a moment before rising. Wait here. When she returned, she carried an envelope, not unlike the one that had contained the divorce papers months ago. She handed it to him without explanation. What's this? He asked, turning it over in his hands. Open it, she said softly. Inside was a single document, the divorce papers he had mocked that October morning, now torn cleanly in half. Nathaniel looked up, his question unspoken but clear in his eyes. I filed those papers because I couldn't bear to spend whatever time I have left feeling unloved and unseen, she explained, her voice steady. That's not how I feel anymore. Are you sure? He asked, emotion making his voice rough. After everything? I'm not saying our problems are solved, she clarified. We still have work to do. But these past 3 months have shown me something I didn't expect to see again. The man I actually married, not the CEO who took his place. Nathaniel carefully placed the torn papers on the coffee table, their significance far outweighing any contract he'd ever signed. When did you decide? He asked. Last week, after my treatment. You had that important investor call, but you rescheduled it because I wasn't feeling well. She smiled slightly. The old Nathaniel would have taken the call in the hospital parking lot and considered that a compromise. The old Nathaniel was an idiot, he said with feeling. She laughed, a genuine sound he had missed desperately. He had his moments. Nathaniel moved to sit beside her on the sofa, taking her hands gently in his. In the quiet of their home, with the city lights twinkling beyond their windows, he made the most important commitment of his life. I promise you, for however long we have, whether it's 50 years or 5, you will never feel invisible again. His voice was low, charged with emotion. You will never question your place in my life or wonder if your needs matter to me. Olivia's eyes glistened with tears. That's a bold promise. I mean every word, he continued. I can't undo the years I wasted focused on the wrong priorities, but I can ensure that every day from now on counts. He gently touched her cheek. I promise to be present, truly present, for the good days when we can conquer the world together, and the hard days when just getting through is an achievement. And Vertex? She asked, the question testing his resolve. We'll continue to thrive under Adira's leadership. I'll contribute where I can add value, but never at the expense of what we're building together. Olivia leaned forward, resting her forehead against his. Day by day, remember? No grand promises about forever, just a commitment to be present today, and then again tomorrow. Day by day, he agreed, understanding the wisdom in her approach. In business, he had always focused on long-term strategy, 5-year plans and distant horizons. But Olivia's illness had taught him the importance of the present moment, the only one guaranteed to any of them. That night, for the first time in months, Olivia slept in their shared bedroom. As Nathaniel listened to her steady breathing beside him, he reflected on how completely his definition of success had transformed in just 3 months. The metrics that once defined his worth, acquisition values, market penetration, quarterly growth, now seemed hollow compared to the simple fact of his wife choosing to trust him again. The victory of helping her through a difficult treatment day now meant more than any business deal he'd ever closed. He had lost his way somewhere between the startup's early struggles and the conglomerate's triumphant rise. But here, in the quiet darkness beside the woman he'd nearly lost, Nathaniel Pierce found something he'd been searching for all along, without ever knowing it was missing. Purpose beyond profit, connection beyond convenience, love beyond obligation. The journey ahead would not be easy. Olivia's condition would have good days and bad. Their relationship would require consistent nurturing after years of neglect. The foundation would face challenges as it grew, but for perhaps the first time since those early dreaming days in their small apartment, Nathaniel felt truly, genuinely aligned with what mattered most. The Prism Gallery was packed for the opening of its newest exhibition, Time and Light, Perspectives on Healing. People filled every corner of the expanded space, which now occupied 3 connected storefronts in the Arts District. Artists, collectors, and art enthusiasts mingled over champagne, their conversations creating a pleasant hum beneath the carefully selected background music. Olivia Pierce, elegant in a simple blue dress that complemented her now shoulder-length hair, moved confidently through the crowd. Her cheeks carried a healthy flush, her eyes bright with purpose as she answered questions about the collection and introduced artists to potential patrons. 5 years had transformed both her and the gallery. What began as a small showcase for emerging artists had evolved into one of the city's most respected art spaces, known for launching careers and challenging conventional boundaries. Tonight's exhibition featured works by artists who had experienced serious illness or caregiving journeys, their perspectives shaped by confronting mortality and finding beauty in recovery. At the center of the main wall hung a large mixed media piece, Olivia's first professional work in over a decade. Layers of texture and color created a landscape that shifted between chaos and order, darkness and light, somehow communicating both struggle and hope without a single recognizable form. "It's extraordinary," commented an older collector studying the piece intently. "The tension between vulnerability and strength. I haven't seen anything this moving in years." "Thank you," Olivia replied. "It's my visual journal of the past 5 years, from diagnosis through treatment to remission." The word remission still carried a special weight when she spoke it. 2 years cancer-free, according to Dr. Patel's latest tests. Not cured, CML was never truly cured, but controlled to the point where quarterly checkups and daily medication were the only reminders of the battle her body had fought. Near the refreshment table, Luis Mendez, now a rising star in the contemporary art world, was explaining his steel and glass installation to an attentive group. His career had launched from an early exhibition at Prism, supported by a Pierce Foundation grant that had allowed him to create without financial pressure during his mother's illness. "Mrs. Pierce saw something in my work when I was ready to give up art altogether," he told the gathered patrons. "She understood that caring for my sick mother and pursuing my creative vision weren't mutually exclusive." Across the room, Nathaniel watched his wife with undisguised admiration. His hair now carried strands of silver at the temples, and the constant tension that once characterized his expression had softened into something more contemplative. He wore no tie, no power suit, just well-tailored casual clothes that suggested comfort rather than dominance. The Pierce Foundation had grown beyond their initial expectations, funding not only medical research, but also arts programs in hospitals across the country. Their pilot program bringing art therapy to cancer patients had just received national recognition, with research demonstrating measurable improvements in patient well-being and recovery outcomes. Photographs displayed in the gallery's second room documented the Foundation's work, children in hospital gowns painting, bright murals, elderly patients sculpting clay despite trembling hands, medical staff participating in creative workshops to combat burnout. Each image told a story of healing that transcended conventional medicine. Nathaniel's phone buzzed, not with work emergencies as it once would have, but with a text from Harper reminding him about Olivia's surprise birthday celebration the following weekend. He smiled, pocketing the device without feeling the once constant pull to check emails or market updates. His relationship with technology had transformed alongside everything else. Whereas devices once served as constant tethers to work, they now connected him to what mattered: Olivia's treatment schedule, foundation activities, messages from the small circle of people who had become true friends rather than business contacts. "The Milan Children's Hospital just confirmed they're adopting our program," Theo reported, joining Nathaniel with a glass of sparkling water. "That makes 17 international locations." "Excellent news," Nathaniel replied. "The research data should help convince the more traditional medical centers." Theo nodded appreciatively. "Your background in corporate strategy has been invaluable for scaling these programs. Who would have thought a former tech CEO would revolutionize arts and healthcare?" "Not me, certainly," Nathaniel admitted. 5 years ago, I couldn't have imagined any of this." As the evening progressed, Adira arrived fashionably late, having come directly from a Vertex executive retreat. Under her leadership, the company had doubled in size and expanded into emerging markets Nathaniel had only conceptualized. "Admiring your wife?" she asked, appearing beside him with a glass of champagne. "Every day," he replied honestly. "How's Vertex?" "Thriving. The Asian expansion is ahead of schedule." She studied him thoughtfully. "Do you ever miss it, being at the center of everything?" Nathaniel considered the question as he watched Olivia laugh with a young artist across the room. "I miss the challenge sometimes," he admitted. "The intellectual puzzle of market strategy, the clarity of measurable goals." "But," Adira prompted. "But I've found more fulfilling ways to use those skills," he gestured toward the Foundation's display. "Building systems that help people directly, rather than just generating wealth, offers a different kind of satisfaction. You know, when you first stepped back, the industry assumed you'd return within months," Adira confided. "No one believed the shark could change his nature." Nathaniel smiled at the old nickname. "They confused adaptation with nature. Turns out I was always capable of more than just hunting for the next deal." Friends, as we witness the conclusion of Nathaniel and Olivia's journey, I invite you to reflect on your own life priorities. What relationships might you be neglecting while pursuing other goals? What conversations have you been postponing that shouldn't wait? If this story has resonated with you, please take a moment to hit subscribe and share it with someone who might need this reminder. Your engagement helps these important messages reach others who might be standing where Nathaniel once stood, successful by conventional measures but missing what truly matters. In the comments below, I'd love to hear about a time when you reassessed your priorities or recognized something valuable before it was too late. Your experiences might just help another viewer make an important change in their own life. Later that night, As Nathaniel and Olivia walked home beneath the stars, she leaned her head against his shoulder. "Happy?" she asked simply. "Completely," he answered without hesitation. "You?" "More than I thought possible when I was sitting in that hospital bed wondering if I'd ever feel whole again." When they had first exchanged wedding vows years ago, they had promised for better or worse, in sickness and in health. Neither could have imagined how profoundly those traditional words would be tested, or how completely their understanding of success would transform. Once measured in acquisitions and profit margins, success now resided in simpler moments: morning coffee together, a patient's first smile during art therapy, using business acumen to make the foundation more effective. The arrogant CEO who once mocked divorce papers had discovered that the most valuable things in life couldn't be listed on a balance sheet or displayed in a penthouse. They were found in connection, purpose, and the courage to change, lessons learned almost too late, but now lived every day. What price do we place on success? How do we measure achievement in a life filled with endless pursuits? These are the questions at the heart of Nathaniel and Olivia's story. When we first met Nathaniel Pierce, the shark measured his worth through acquisitions, market dominance, and wealth accumulation. His corner office showcased his professional triumphs while his marriage withered from neglect. Only when faced with the potential loss of his wife did he recognize the emptiness of his achievements. The true lesson isn't simply family over career. It's about authentic alignment between our stated values and our daily choices. Nathaniel claimed to value his marriage, yet allocated no meaningful time or attention to it. He believed he was building security, when in fact he was destroying his most important relationship. Many of us make similar miscalculations in smaller ways. We postpone conversations that matter. We check our phones during dinner with loved ones. We prioritize urgent work demands over important personal connections. Each small choice creates the pattern of our lives until one day we look up to find ourselves surrounded by accomplishments but disconnected from purpose. Olivia's illness served as the catalyst for change, but the warning signs existed long before her diagnosis. The separate bedrooms, the abandoned art studio, the divorce papers that Nathaniel dismissed with such arrogance, all signals he chose to ignore until crisis forced his attention. Remember that hospital room where our story began? When Nathaniel first heard the words chronic myeloid leukemia and realized how completely he had failed to see what was happening right beside him, that moment represents a crossroads we all potentially face. Will we continue down paths that may bring professional success but personal emptiness? Or will we have the courage to reassess, redirect, and rebuild with clearer priorities? The most profound transformation in this story wasn't Olivia's recovery or even the foundation's impact. It was Nathaniel's evolution from someone who viewed relationships as transactions to someone who understood their irreplaceable value. 5 years after that hospital revelation, Nathaniel didn't just change his schedule. He fundamentally altered how he defined himself and what he considered important. The man who once measured days in deals closed now counted moments of genuine connection. The executive who prided himself on never being unreachable learned the value of being fully present with the people physically before him. This isn't about abandoning ambition or professional goals. Nathaniel continued contributing his considerable skills through the foundation and his advisory role. The difference was purpose and proportion, using his talents in service of meaningful impact while maintaining proper perspective on what deserved his primary attention. What truly matters in your life right now? Who deserves more of your presence? What conversations have you been postponing that shouldn't wait another day? These aren't comfortable questions, but they're essential ones. None of us knows how much time we have. The privilege of tomorrow isn't guaranteed for anyone. Nathaniel Pierce had wealth, power, and professional admiration, everything our culture typically celebrates as success. Yet he stood empty-handed when facing what really mattered. His journey reminds us that our most valuable resource isn't money but attention, and where we consistently direct that attention ultimately defines our lives. Thank you for joining me for today's story on the Mr. Ross Story Trail. If these reflections touch something in you, please consider subscribing to our channel. Each week, we explore narratives that challenge us to examine our lives and choices more carefully. Leave a comment sharing one action you'll take this week to be more present with someone who matters to you. Your commitment might inspire others to make similar choices. Until our next story, remember, success that costs you the people you love is failure disguised in achievement's clothing. Choose wisely what you prioritize before circumstances force that choice upon you.